Hi everyone, my name is Serena. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to do my June wrap-up. It's already the 13th of July and I still haven't filmed this video, but here I am. I actually had a great reading month in June. I read 14 books, so that's a lot for me. I read a total of 3,976 pages and average star rating was 4 stars. So yeah, let's begin. So I've been participating in the Alice Oseman read along, and I will link the hosts down below. But basically, we are reading all of Alice Oseman's books this summer. So it began with the 4 Heartstopper graphic novels, and I binge read them all in June. And I love them. I read first, second, third, and fourth volume. I also read the Heartstopper mini comics. I gave that one 4, but all of the other ones were 5 for me. I think my favorite was the third one or the second, and it's basically about these 2 teenagers, Nick and Charlie, who meet and they fall in love. So it's a gay romance. I love it. It's so cute and it made me emotional in some parts, especially when Nick talked with his mom, or whenever the friends in the friend group helped one another. I love that. I love when friendships are like real and they help each other, and yeah, that made me emotional. I kind of cried. I think I filmed myself, so here's a clip. Yeah, I just wanted you to witness this moment. I am reading volume 3 of Heartstopper, and I love this. Also, it deals with mental health and other stuff, so please check out the trigger warnings if you need to. After that, I finished Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. I gave this one 5 stars as well, I think. Yes. So this is basically an historical fiction, but it's also a fantasy because there is this element of time travel in which there's this woman, Dana, an African-American woman who lives in 1976, and one day she is transported back in time to the antebellum South. So in Maryland, when there was slavery in America, and while she is there in the past, she saves a white boy from drowning, and she helps him, but then the slaver is about to shoot her and she is brought back to the present. So this is the first like scene, the first couple of pages, but then after that she is brought back in time more times because we discover that there is this connection between Dana and this boy from the past. So it was really interesting. I want to read more by this author, and I can't. It made me anxious because this woman from the present doesn't know what slavery is, and being transported back in time and being considered a slave, yeah. Let's move on. After Kindred, I buddy read Malibu Rising with Hillary from Melted Books, and oh my gosh, I love this. I think that Taylor Jenkins Reid might be one of my favorite authors. I mean, she is, because so far the 3 books that I read by her were amazing. And the main reason why I love the books that I read from her is because I love the settings that she writes about and the atmosphere. I don't know if I would like her backlist because it deals with other settings. There are more romance books, but this, Daisy Jones and the Six, and The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo deal with Hollywood and the 70s, the 80s, and I just love that. I don't know what it is, but I love it. Also, the way she writes, I feel like I'm in it, like in the story. I can picture everything perfectly in my mind. The pacing was great for me because it is set during one night, but at the same time there were flashbacks. So it didn't feel quick, but it also didn't drag, you know? This is about Nina Riva and her 3 siblings, and Nina Riva every year organizes this huge party in Malibu, and this is set in 1983. But we also see flashbacks of her parents when they met and all that, and she is like a famous surfer. There are surfers on the cover, and she's had a particular childhood. She goes through grief, and she's also basically responsible and a parent figure to her siblings, and we discover why. And I just really liked her character. I also really loved Kit. I loved them all, honestly, and the drama between the brothers. This was fun. This was so fun, and a lot of people seem to enjoy this less than her previous 2 books, and I understand why. I think the main complaint is that in the second half of this book, when it's all about the party and there are no more flashbacks, we have a lot of random POVs. And I personally love that because it really gives that idea of chaos. We see different parts of this house, this huge house, and we see different characters doing stuff, crazy stuff, you know? So it really explains and gives the idea of how chaotic this party is. So I loved it personally, even though I don't care about these people. It was also mentioned that in this book there were going to be some characters that we met previously, and that's true. Nina Riva, his father was Mick Riva, if you remember. It was interesting to see how these 3 books are connected in some way, and I really hope she continues on in this setting, in this world that she created, because I loved it. The next book that I finished was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, and I'm gonna talk about this book in another video too, but it was good. I enjoyed it. I give it 3.5 stars. And this is really a book for Shakespeare fans. It's just really, if you love Shakespeare, you will love this book, I think. It is written like, well, not written like, but it is divided like a Shakespeare play. There are acts and scenes. This is also my first Dark Academia book. I know that there is The Secret History, but I don't know if I want to read that one, but I read this for now. I don't know if I love Dark Academia. I only read this book, so I can't really make up my mind, but I enjoyed this one. It's a mystery thriller, and it begins with this man called Oliver getting released from prison after serving 10 years. 10 years ago, a classmate at university was killed. The student basically was his friend. It's a story about this group of friends in university, and they are studying drama. They do basically Shakespeare plays, and it was fun. There are a lot of quotes. They quote a lot of Shakespeare, and they do different plays. I think they do Julius Caesar for sure, I remember, but I only read Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. I want to read more, and the ending was interesting. Obviously I'm not gonna say anything. Oliver in the present is telling the story of the past to an almost retired investigator. He went to Oliver and asked, listen, tell me what really happened, because I know you didn't do it. And he is explaining what actually happened. The characters are all unlikable, kinda, and they are friends, but not really. And everyone plays a particular part in Shakespeare plays, like the hero, the villain, the friend, the seductress, and they actually resemble these characters in real life. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Next, I read Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo. I really love this author as well. I read her other 2 books, and now I read this one. This is written in verse. I love books in verse. They're really quick. This is a story about 2 sisters who don't know that they are sisters, and one lives in New York and the other one lives in the Dominican Republic. They share the father. They have the same father. And this father goes back and forth from New York to the Dominican Republic, and when he's in the Dominican Republic, he tells the other daughter that he's going for work and vice versa. One day, while he's on a flight to the Dominican Republic, the plane crashes and he dies. And now these two sisters discover that they have a sister, and it's about grief. It is set during a short period of time. They have to organize the funeral, and the dad really wanted to be buried in the Dominican Republic. I gave this one, did I give it 5 stars? Yes, I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. After that, I continued on with the Alice Oseman read-along and read Nick and Charlie, This Winter, and Solitaire. So I didn't know that Solitaire had the same characters of Heartstopper. Solitaire follows the sister of Charlie's sister Tori, and I know that Alice Oseman rewrote the story, and now there's another version of the story out because it was written when she was 19, maybe 18, and there were a lot of like problematic stuff that are outdated, and now she rewrote those parts. I'm pretty sure that I read the old version though on Scribd. I'm not sure if it was the old version or the new version. If you want to check out this book, check out the new version of course. But it's about I don't know what this is about, honestly. Nothing much happened. It's about angsty teenagers. And Tori is that typical teenager who hates everyone. And she really does. She keeps saying that she hates everything and everyone. She hates reading. And I'm like, no, you don't. Why do you hate reading? I think the only thing that she likes is watching movies. She dresses up as Wednesday Addams at a Halloween party. As I said, for Heartstopper, go search trigger warnings, especially for Solitaire. Nick and Charlie and This Winter were short novellas with Nick and Charlie, and one is set, I think, after Heartstopper Volume 4, yes, and This Winter is set at Christmas before the second part of Heartstopper Volume 4. So it's a timeline. It's weird to explain if you haven't read the books, but I think I got it. I think I know what the timeline is. And I gave the novellas 3 stars. I gave Solitaire 2.5 stars because it just wasn't for me. I don't hate it. It just wasn't for me. So the next book that I read was a classic. I read Mansfield Park by Jane Austen, and this was a buddy read with Mary, Amanda, Victoria, Ellie. I'm participating in this book club. I will link the live down below, and every 2 months we are reading a Jane Austen book. We are reading Emma in August, and then I think Northanger Abbey in October, and Persuasion in December if I'm correct. But I had read Pride and Prejudice previously years ago. Don't remember much. Obviously I remember the story because I rewatched the movie so many times. The 2005 movie is like my comfort movie. I love it. Mansfield Park, I enjoyed it. I give it 3 stars, but it's very different from Jane Austen's other books from what I've heard, because it concentrates less on the romance and more on social status, class, money, you know. And if you like this book, you don't like it for the romance, because the romance is really in the last paragraph, the last chapter maybe, and the love interest isn't good. I don't like him. He's boring. This story begins with 3 sisters who marry. One marries a really wealthy man, and the other one does too. But the last sister marries a not wealthy man. They're not poor. They have like, I think 1 or 2 maids, but they are not upper class. They're middle class, and they live, I think, in Portsmouth. This sister keeps having kids. And at one point, she can't afford all of these kids. So she decides to bring one of her kids, the firstborn daughter, Fanny, to her wealthy sister. And at her aunt's house, she is not treated well. I mean, they don't abuse her, but Mrs. Norris in particular keeps telling her and keeps reminding her 8 years of her life since she moved there that she is less than her cousins, that she is less important, less intelligent, and not equal to her cousins, and she takes it. She's a nice girl. She respects them even though they don't respect her, and maybe that's why a lot of people don't like Mansfield Park, because this main character is very different from other Jane Austen's main characters, and she is considered boring and too nice maybe, but I actually enjoyed this book because of her. She's like the only main character that I like in this book. I enjoyed the Crawfords. I mean, I don't like them, but they were interesting. But Fanny is very relatable in my opinion. I think a lot of people can relate to her. She's very shy and introverted, and she avoids confrontation and doing stuff that aren't considered proper and whatever. But at the same time, she knows what she wants. And when Mr. Crawford proposes to her, she refuses him so many times. No matter what any family member tells her, she refuses him. She knows how to judge a character more than other people do. Like, her moral compass is so much better than any other character, because even though the plot doesn't happen because of her, the plot happens because of the Crawfords. The only thing that she does to make the plot move is refuse Mr. Crawford. She observes a lot. She looks at everyone and she sees things that other people don't. Jane Austen also mentions slavery, the slave trade that happened with England and, Africa, America. She also mentions that, which I found very interesting. She doesn't talk a lot about it though, but it's mentioned a little bit. Last book that I finished in June, and definitely the least, was A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This was on my May book haul. I was so excited. I thought this was going to be 5 stars, but it ended up being the most disappointing book that I read in 2021 so far. I was really expecting to cry and feel things, I don't know, but it ended up being the most depressing book I've ever read in a bad way. So I don't want to talk a lot about this book, honestly, at least not in this video. But first of all, I want to say, go watch Olivia Savannah's video, her rant review. I will link it down below in my description box. I buddy read this book with her. We talked about this book so much. We both did not enjoy it. I can't imagine anyone enjoying this book, honestly. For what concerns the synopsis, it's about these 4 people, these 4 friends, but not really, because after the first quarter of this book, we only concentrate on Jude and Willem. So we have Jude, Willem, JB, and Malcolm. JB and Malcolm we don't see much. Sometimes we do, but at the beginning we had like their POVs and stuff, but then it just went in another direction. So I was expecting this to be a friendship kind of book, like found family or whatever, and it didn't. Jude is the main character. We follow him and everything that happened to him growing up, and honestly, trigger warnings for everything, anything that you can imagine, it's in this book. After reading this book, I watched some interviews with the author, and she admits that she didn't do any research for what concerns disability, because Jude, the main character, is disabled, and a lot of people don't know that. She is an able-bodied author, and I think you should do some research on that. Also, she didn't do research on all of the heavy topics that happen in this. What she did do research on, I think, from what I've heard, is the jobs, because Jude is a lawyer, JB is a painter, Willem is an actor, and Malcolm is an architect. So she does research on that, but all of the other stuff, the heavy stuff, she doesn't do any research. I think she said she didn't feel like doing any research because she just wanted to write a character that was beyond hope and never got better, and that is Jude. So you can predict that nothing good is gonna happen in this book, and I don't necessarily want everything to be rainbows and butterflies and flowers. I have enjoyed very sad books before, But this was too much. It's a melodrama, and honestly, so a lot of people say it's trauma porn. I agree, because a lot of things happen in this book, and a character that's beyond hope, a disabled character that's beyond hope. Do we really want to send this message? It's fiction. If it were nonfiction written by an own voices author, okay, that's another story. I know people who read this book and loved it may be thinking, are you crazy? Like, life isn't all perfection and positivity. I know that, okay? But I was really desensitized, and I didn't feel anything by the end. At the beginning, and Olivia knows this, I was anxious, and like there were cutting scenes, and I really couldn't read those scenes. Also, they were scenes in which I felt very angry, in particular with one person, with one character, and then another scene happened and I just felt so icky, and I was feeling things, and I was like, okay, it's kind of problematic, there's something that I don't like about this book, but I'm feeling things. After this first half though, in the second half, I didn't feel anything, honestly. At one point I was messaging Olivia, and we were like, yeah, that happened, like something horrible happened, and we were like, yeah, that was expected. You shouldn't be saying those things while reading stuff like this, you know? I felt so without emotions, you know? I didn't have any emotions by the end. Bad things keep happening, and I didn't feel anything. This is like 800 pages, and it should have been 500, like 200 pages less, maybe 300. Disappointing. Like in every wrap up, now I'm going to briefly mention what I've watched. I've watched 3 movies and 3 shows. The book to movie adaptations that I watched were the 1999 version and the 2007 version of Mansfield Park. They're nothing like the 2005 Pride and Prejudice movie, because I love that movie and I don't love these movies. But the 1999 one was so much better than the 2007 one, because they chopped a lot of things in the 2007 movie. Plus, I think that the outfits and the hair weren't accurate, but don't quote me on that because I'm not an historian. The other movie that I watched, which isn't an adaptation, was Parker. I watched that with my dad. He likes action movies, so wanted to mention that. And the 3 shows that I watched Defending Jacob on Apple TV. So this is a book to movie adaptation. I never read the book. It's a thriller, but it's about this lawyer who is a dad and has this son, and one day his son's classmate gets killed in the nearby woods, and so he's on the case, but then his son becomes a suspect. So Defending Jacob, you know, it was interesting. I also watched Dickinson season 1 and season 2 on Apple TV again, and this was so interesting. It's about Emily Dickinson. I enjoyed it. Like, at first I was like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this to be a comedy. It's comedy, it's funny, and it also, how do I say it? It's set in the past, obviously. We have like the 1800s fashion and everything. But there are modern stuff, like there are some like modern music, kind of like Bridgerton when they had that modern music too. But they also talked very modernly, and they were also making hints at, you know, modern stuff in politics and society. Like back then there was slavery, and I think the Dickinson family lived in Massachusetts, so in the north where slavery wasn't as bad. So when the slaves ran to Massachusetts in the north, we have Emily Dickinson's father, who was running for mayor, that said, I think at one point, we accept immigrants, we're America, we accept whatever. And that was like a hint a criticism to nowadays with the immigrant situation. And I liked all those like subtle hints, you know. They were fun to listen about, you know, especially if you know like what they're talking about. It's so much fun. Last show that I watched was See on Apple TV again. We have Jason Momoa. This is a post-apocalyptic story in which after the end of the world, whatever, there was this virus. Everybody became blind. So every human on earth is blind. And then obviously what happens? Someone is born and they have eyesight, so they can see, and that is like not a good thing. They have to hide it because people think that that is like something demonic, you know. And I enjoyed it. There were some things that made me laugh. Like, they lived like they were in prehistoric times, but they had like plastic water bottles, like they were out of place. But you know, I enjoyed it. Obviously I enjoy seeing Jason Momoa doing his thing. All of his like crazy moves. The second season is coming out in August, so it's perfect. I watched it in time. And yeah, those are all the things that I read and watched in June. This I think is going to be a long video, but what was your favorite read of June? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you in my next video. Bye!